Hello and welcome to the latest episode of The Weigh-In with BBB. Got Andrew here and Stephen over there. You all right, mate?
I'm good, thanks. All good, mate. Good. Good to be back again. Looking forward to a good weekend of boxing.
And we're just talking about a few of the fights there, a few of the cards, but a hell of a weekend. It's like boxing is coming back. Obviously, we had last weekend, and then we've got this weekend. Just seems to be building that bit more momentum, and obviously over the next few weeks, getting towards like world title fights and all the rest of it. But I don't think, from a Northeast point of view and from a national interest point of view, there's anywhere else to start other than David Avanesyan against Josh Kelly for the EBU European welterweight title. It is a fight that has been a long time, many time in the making. I'll celebrate and believe it's going to happen when they're both in the ring, I think, but we'll chance it now on the Thursday before the fight on Saturday. We'll chance that it's going to happen, and we'll drop our predictions for that one as well as the undercard. And we'll also have a look at the MTK show, which is happening tomorrow night as well. But as I say, we'll start with that main event, Avanesyan Kelly.
Yeah.
Where do you want to begin with that one? Anywhere in particular?
No, just to, if anyone listens to us regularly, then we both love the fight. I loved it the first time it was announced, and then the second, third, and fourth times it was announced and re-announced and what have you. And like you say, it's gone through the middle of that fight, and will they, won't they? Various different reasons, few accusations probably from both sides as delays and stuff, but it's happening and it's back. Just love it. I just think it's a great fight, proper 50-50 pick 'em fight, really. I think the odds reflect that as well. Not much in it, really. I love it. It's funny you mentioned there from a Northeast point of view, and it just makes us click into it that, I do forget that Josh Kelly's a Northeast fighter, if that makes sense. Like, he's from our part of the world, Washington and East Sunderland, but I think because he's not based here in the Northeast and hasn't been for like a good few years now, you forget that he's like a Northeast type of fighter from here. So, but looking forward to being a big fan of Josh Kelly and big fan of Avanesyan as well. I think hopefully it just delivers on Saturday night.
It's interesting you say that, because I think it does have the potential to, and obviously you just talked about it's very closely matched. These are two very similar level of boxers, even though they've got sort of different levels of experience professionally. Avanesyan's held a regular version of a world title, I think, in the past. He's been in with some big names. He's definitely got the experience advantage of the two, purely as a professional. And it's interesting because it's not that he's necessarily on the slide. I think a lot of people are backing Avanesyan in this one, and he's going in as a favourite, whether it's slight favourite or not. And that's not always the case with a British prospect, in particular with Matchroom. Like, normally, until they get to that world title level, they're often the favourite. We've talked about it in the past with like careful matchmaking, and this doesn't seem to be, even from the hardcore fans' point of view, doesn't seem to be an example of that. It's Kelly. He's had 10, 11 pro fights now. Like, he's been moved at a very fast pace into this position, and I think he's going to have to be at his absolute best to come away with the win and to get anything out of it.
I do agree with that. I think there's probably question marks over both. Like, Avanesyan does have a few losses on his record, but I think we'll be coming into this with a great deal of confidence. I think beat Lejaraga, the Spanish like knockout artist, really, who was brushed aside a lot of English fighters, a few English fighters at least, before coming unstuck against Avanesyan. So I think he's coming in with big confidence. He's definitely mixed at that European, European level with the two successive wins over him. I think before that he beat Frankie Gavin, he dismantled Bradley Skeet as well. So that was a decent win. Decent couple of wins that for Avanesyan. Kelly, bit of a forgotten man, to be honest with you. You say like he's moved fast, and he has moved fast in terms of this is like, what is it, his 11th or 12th fight. But as a pro, it'll be his 12th. He's moved fast in that regards to be European level after his 12th fight. But in the same way, he's been a bit of a ghost since that Ray Robinson fight. You know what I mean? Like back in well, it was 2019, sort of summer. Was it summer 2019? Ray Robinson that draw in Madison Square Garden.
And I think that one is a fight that stands out in particular for a lot of the Avanesyan backers, because Kelly didn't look particularly good. There's an argument Robinson got the win, and Kelly's arguably flattered to deceive a little bit in quite a few of his fights. I know we obviously seen him from ringside when he did fight up here and won the Commonwealth, and he did well. Like he never looked in trouble. He got the stoppage. You know, he was in control of the contest from start to finish. But on the eye, that's often not enough. He seems to be stuck in second or third gear a lot of the time in coasting past these opponents who, if we believe everything we're led to, then he should be going out there and showing that he's levels and levels above the opponents he's faced so far, which he hasn't always done. And I know there's an argument from Adam Booth, his trainer, and a few of his gym mates, that he hasn't shown what he's capable of in the ring. He's a lot more or he shows a lot more in the gym and maybe fights down, or has been guilty of fighting down in the past to his level of opponent. Whereas what you really want to see in that eye test is him going out and dismantling these, like similar to how he did maybe earlier on in his career. Obviously, the Tom Whitfield fight stand out in particular. Tom will not thank me for bringing that one up, but like that sort of performance that got everyone off the seat, everyone sort of raising their eyebrows, thinking, okay, like it was at a lower level, but he's shown that he's levels above that. Whereas a lot of his fights tend to go the distance or go into the later rounds, and it's not through sort of being in a war or being involved in tough fights necessarily. It's just that he hasn't seemed capable, or maybe more accurately willing, to put his foot on the gas and get the opponents out of there.
That is an interesting one, and I think probably with a dose of hindsight now, the Ray Robinson draw in America, he's no mug of Ray Robinson. He wasn't either. He hasn't fought since Josh Kelly. I don't know where he's gone, but he's a decent fighter. Do you know what I mean? But I think it was building, like you say, like we saw him in, I think, 2018 against Chris George for the Commonwealth at Newcastle Arena. The fight before that, he beat Carlos Molina, former world title challenger or world champion, I don't know. But like that was the momentum there, and that was when Adam Booth was coming out with a big statement of, he's the most naturally gifted fighter like I've ever worked with, and you just have to look at who Adam Booth's worked with to think, but yeah, that is a big statement. And the results and the performances at that point were sort of in correlation with what Adam Booth was saying, and I think it might well have been that draw that I mentioned against Robinson in the States that have sort of, maybe harshly, made people sort of put their handbrakes on him and think he's a bit sort of all style, no substance type of thing. And
and that's where you get the overrated shouts or the hype train, like overhyped shouts. And I think with the high level of praise that Adam Booth put his way, you get a higher level of scrutiny from fans and from sort of the hardcore fans who they'll be looking at every round and every fight and like watching him and thinking, well, we're getting told that this guy's no more naturally talented than like David Hay, George Groves, again, like the list goes on, and fighters Adam Booth's worked with. And then that criticism comes because he's not quite living up to that every time he fights. Now, if he's been guilty of coasting in the past, and again, that's what we've sort of been told and that's what's been alluded to, he's not going to have that opportunity on Saturday night for me. I think Avanesyan is notorious for having a really, really high output, really good work rate. He's decent, like good power in both hands. I might be wrong. He might come out and put on a masterclass on the back foot, but I envisage Avanesyan being the one looking to bring the fight to Kelly and put him under pressure from the opening bell to the last, whenever that bell may be, whenever the fight ends, whether it goes the distance or not. And it's going to be a real acid test for Kelly as to, can he deliver? Like, is it that he's got a bit more in the locker than he's maybe shown so far? Like, how is he going to cope when he doesn't have things his own way, when he's got his opponent on his chest relentlessly? Like, is he going to have the strength to keep him off, as well as the boxing ability? Because I think the combinations and the fast hands and the skills that he's shown so far that alone is not going to be enough to keep Avanesyan at bay. He's going to have to maybe show a little bit more and really like dig in at times, and it's going to be, like, as I say, a big test for him, and it'll be really interesting to see whether he passes that test, see if he is capable of stepping up to that level and dealing with a bit of adversity.
I totally agree. Like I said before there, about people may think that he's a bit sort of old style and a bit no substance, and I think if that is true, or this will be the fight that it gets tested, I think Avanesyan will approach it one way, and that's to come forward and be the aggressor. And I think Kelly's going to have to be on his game throughout. And I think it'll give us a real sort of like a real live example of where he is at. You know what I mean? Is he just exactly where he's at now, and going forward where he will be after that? Is he class? Is he genuinely class, or is he a bit of a show pony, a bit arrogant, a bit flashy tricks, movement, bit arrogance, pretty boy Kelly type of thing? Or like, can he dig? Can he scrap? Can he fight? Do you know what I mean? And I think we haven't really found that out as a pro yet.
No, we haven't had to a certain extent.
No,
again, like the Robinson fight you can refer to, but the nickname and the whole sort of image that goes around a pretty boy in boxing, I think that in itself tends to rub certain boxing fans up the wrong way.
100%.
We saw it with Ryan Garcia, didn't we? Like, and there's almost this misconception of that if someone puts it on him, or if someone frustrates him and gets to him, he's not going to be able to take it. Like, he'll quit, or he'll swallow it. And again, like, that's where, like, Ryan Garcia proved that wasn't the case. He got dropped by Luke Campbell, got up and stopped him and did the business. And it wouldn't surprise me to see Kelly have to pick himself up off the canvas on Saturday night and, as I say, respond to that bit of adversity. And I'm actually backing him to come through it. I think Kelly will win. I think he'll win on points. I can see it going one of two ways with regards to that. I think either he puts on an absolute masterclass and Avanesyan trudges forward for most of the night, but can't pin him down, can't like cancel out his movement, and Kelly basically boxes his head off for 12 rounds, or for the majority of those 12 rounds. The more likely outcome, I think it'll be a close competitive fight, and I think there'll be some controversy regarding the scorecards, and
no doubt,
just like we had last weekend with certain bouts on the Warrington undercard. I think boxing Twitter will go into a bit of a meltdown come Saturday night, Sunday morning. And I'm not saying that it'll be a robbery and that the Kelly's only getting it because he's the home fighter, the matchroom fighter on the card. I just think the way I see the fight going, it's going to almost be scored before it happens by a lot of fans. If you're a boxing fan and you like to see an aggressor, you like to see a fighter come forward, apply the pressure, throw lots of shots, be busy, get stuck in, then you're going to favour the work of Avanesyan. If you're looking for the cleaner work and the maybe more skillful work, you're going to look towards what Kelly's doing. And that's all fair and well as a fan. You're entitled to do that and watch the fight and see it however you want to. You know what I mean? You're not in that position where there's a responsibility on you. But what I'll implore is, like, for the judges, please just try and score the fight on what you see rather than any preconception of how you see it going. Because, again, as I say, I might be wrong. Avanesyan could come out and box on the back foot. Kelly could come out and put it on him. But I envisage it being Avanesyan coming forward, Kelly doing the majority of his work off the back foot, and both men being happy with what they've done at the end. And obviously then it just be in the lap of the gods or the hands of the judges, as it were, come the final bell.
It's just going back to Kelly there, I think, like you mentioned, he is a pretty divisive figure. Like you mentioned, the nickname, the pretty boy nickname, that again has certain sort of connotations and reputations to live up to as well. And I think if you start to fall beneath that, you can get a bit grief. And I think a lot of fans will probably be willing to have Avanesyan on Saturday because he's the throwback fighter. He's the just proper fighter. He's been in with better names, bigger names. He's gone the road. He's scored some knockouts, and I think there'll be a lot of love out there for Avanesyan on Saturday. And I think Kelly, even from our part of the world, he's quite a divisive figure. Not everyone, for whatever reason, sort of takes to him. I think he had that brief flirtation when they try to market him as a a Newcastle, a Northeast fighter, and I think that fell flat in its arse, to be truthful. Like, well,
it was the George fight for the Commonwealth, wasn't it? We talked about earlier. Like, he put on a pretty much flawless performance, but whether it is the Newcastle Sunderland divide and he got a bit of stick, and it's frustrating. Like, for me, as I say, a self-confessed, self-appointed, knowledgeable boxing fan, like, I like to think I know what I'm watching. So sitting ringside watching him basically dismantle Chris George and then stop him around like a midpoint in the fight, he'll go back to Adam Booth, and Adam Booth will be full of praise from him, and rightly so.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, what more do you want from a fighter in that regard? And
I don't think it was
what was expected. I've got no issue with that performance whatsoever. But then I see I understand exactly what you're getting at, because then it's almost that he doesn't lend himself to necessarily a fan-friendly style. He doesn't maybe have that one-punch knockout power that he can box in his sort of flashy way, but then produce like a stunning knockout, like a Prince Naseem Hamed, for example. Not making comparison there. In fact, I'm contrasting between the two, if anything. But like, I've seen him before, and it might have been the Molina fight on like a Joshua undercard, and sitting there with more casual fans, like my mates and that. Like, it's Josh Kelly. He's from Sunderland. He's from up here. Like, I'm almost wanting to get behind him, and then it's just like a 10-round procession, and you think that's your audition to try and build your fan base, and it doesn't necessarily like work like that, does it? Like, we've talked about.
Well, that's it, and I think
red in the face about ticket sellers and how it doesn't necessarily translate that you could be the most talented fighter in the world, but there's other factors at play that are going to sort of get you that following that would maybe get him to fill out arenas up here.
I just think I think it was just naivety on Matchroom's part. Really, when you think about why it fell flat up here, it was on the sort of crest of the written wave where he beat Paul Hyland for the British title. He had 12,000 predominantly Geordies, Newcastle fans in an arena, absolutely raucous. Richard had blasted him out of there in the first round, won a British title, and then you've put, for all intents and purposes, like a Mackham, a Sunderland lad, on as the headline fight. So you've got this massive frenzied boxing crowd Saturday night on the lash, on the drink. Geordie's just won the British title, like, you know, was it outright at that time? Was that his outright win, Paul Hyland? I think so,
yeah.
And then you've got this flashy Sunderland lad for, you know, and I'm not saying that's his fault at all. None of it's his fault. I just putting on a bit of a boxing clinic, and I think it just, the atmosphere, I remember sitting next to you there ringside that night, and it was just flat, absolutely flat. It was like people were willing them to get Chris George out there so they could leave, basically, and I think a lot of people did leave, and I think there was probably a few boos that night, and, you know, you do hear rumours around the sort of circuit local, think that he's, you know, request that he'd probably never box up here again as a headliner, you know, unless it's his crowd. I can't imagine he'd be in any rush after that sour experience to come back on a local, you know, a Newcastle type of show, really, which is quite sad, really, because the region will be robbed of watching a very good talent, but that experiment just sort of failed, really. Was it just a case of running order and the way it went on the night? I don't know. They should have maybe thought about that, but I never fought up here since, and doesn't look in any return to, in any hurry to do that again. So a divisive figure.
This is where he said maybe it's hard saying, like, for talking about him finding himself in limbo, because as you say, he's fighting for the European title and his 12th pro fight. Like, he has been moved quickly for all intents and purposes. But wherever you then put him, like if he's propping up an undercard or whatever, because his fights aren't necessarily, you're not expecting them to end early. Like, you know how skillful he is, and that you'll outbox him, or like outbox the majority of fighters around his level, like over the distance, or you'll take them rounds, like, or they'll take him rounds, whichever way you want to flip it. And it's almost like that filler, like, you know what I mean? On a big card, how many times have you sat there and a certain fighter comes up and you think, oh, well, this is going the distance or whatever. Like when Matchroom used to have their names on, and like the likes of a Jamie McDonnell or a Gavin McDonnell was on the card. That was going to go the 10 or the 12 rounds, or you were pretty certain it would. And it's almost like he could potentially find himself in that role where he's not shifting the tickets necessarily, but then he does have a value to Matchroom because he's one of the sort of best prospects and probably one of their best chances of this new generation getting a world title.
That's it. And honestly, it sounds like we're hating on Josh Kelly here.
I'm defending him.
I'm a huge fan. Like, I think he's phenomenally talented, like amazing fighter. I just think there's different ways to do it, and he's, as I said to you earlier, like different ways to come through as a fighter and different ways to market a fighter. Like, he's not going to be, unless something changes within the plan of his career, he's not going to be marketed as this like red and white army and sell out the Stadium of Light and start fighting in Sunderland. He's not marketed to like a local northeast football crowd, really. Do you know what I mean? Like Warrington, Leeds, Wrexham, Newcastle. He's basically like elite. As I said earlier, look at him as like a northeast fighter come good. I look at him as like elite GB class.
Yeah,
and you're on the undercards and you're boxing on the road, and he's going to be that type of fighter. And he probably
comes from that amateur Olympic pedigree, doesn't it? Like he's an Olympian, and with that you get a certain probably like elevated status as a prospect, which like well deserved from having like the top amateur career.
He's not with a local.
Not necessarily been on a ticket deal as he with Matchroom. You know what I mean? Like, and there'll be others like that. It's almost get him on the cards, get him the exposure nationally straight away, rather than building up that little, I don't know, like a small sort of following locally and going from there. As you say, it's a different way of doing it, and it's heavily reliant on success in the ring.
It's very London centric, like very sort of, you know what I mean? Like he's
and again, like obviously we talked with Mick Conlon, didn't we? And he said like when he came back to the UK, he made it very clear. And again, because of his amateur pedigree, he was in a position to almost pick his trainer. And he said, like, when he come back to the UK, he was like, there's only one trainer who I'll work with in England, in the UK, and that was Adam Booth. And see, that was based purely on reputation. Maybe they had some sort of knowledge of each other and, like, you know what I mean, like the informal relationship, whatever. But then he said he still basically had to go there on trial almost from both points of view and make sure it was the right fit. And I think Josh did the same when he turned pro, because his dad got in touch with Adam Booth, I believe, and was saying, like, my son wants to train with you. We want you to be his trainer. And like Booth looked at a picture of him, was like, he's not a boxer, like, what you're not. He's a model. And like again, they went down from there. But I think making that decision and obviously signing with Matchroom when they've plotted out his career, yes, he fought up here a couple of times that he fought early on, didn't he? In the headline in the Next Gen show, we talked about that one. And then, but his plan was more to do with appearing on these big shows, like on the Joshua undercards, on the pay-per-view shows, and building, as I say, building the reputation nationally rather than locally. And again, obviously, that if you've got the talent and you've got a promoter like Matchroom and a trainer like Adam Booth backing you and believing in you, then like you are going to go that route. And as I say, Saturday night is going to be the biggest test of his career so far, and it's going to be the biggest opportunity for us as boxing fans to see exactly where he's at. I think there's a lot of it's hard because obviously I'm basically judging this off our social media and stuff, but a lot of the accounts and the people we follow, I think there are a lot of people expecting him to come up short, or maybe, as you said, alluded to earlier, maybe hoping he comes up short, and I don't think he will. I think he'll be like, this will be the making of him. I think this will be the performance that maybe changes a lot of people's opinion of him, and we then see him as like this legit world champion in waiting.
No, I agree as well. I think we should hopefully see the best Josh Kelly. Do you know what I mean? And that's not just because we interviewed Mick Conlon and Mick Conlon said he was flying, but you do hear tidbits around and stuff, and he's had that period of inactivity which could actually work in his favour to like really settle in with Adam Booth and like work on things and sort of learn his craft in the gym a bit more and really get used to the Adam Booth way as well. And I think that actual period out of the ring may have done him the world of good. And I would like to think that this could be that breakout performance, like you say, that special performance where that ability, that natural ability, comes to the fore against someone who's not as talented as him, but is probably, will be well up for the scrap. And I think Kelly's going to have to be on his A game, but I do expect a Kelly win on Saturday night.
We're actually agreeing on it for once.
Yeah, and I can't wait for it as well. I'm really looking
forward. That's it. I'm looking forward to it. It's a decent card, and we'll go into the card now. But like, it's been a fight, like, with all joking aside, it's been made several times, and I think the delay will favour Kelly more. Like, he's the younger man, he's the fresher man. I think Avanesyan would have wanted to have fought Kelly as early as possible, depending on who you believe as to why it was cancelled and stuff. Maybe delaying tactics, maybe Team Kelly wanted it to sort of simmer a little bit longer and then get me. But for all the reasons we talked about, it's such an intriguing fight. It shows again, like, even though it's European level, it doesn't have to be a world title fight to be a really good card, and some competitive fights top to bottom on this one.
There is, and obviously we'll go down the undercard now, and I think the fight that everyone likes is Florian Marku versus Rylan Charlton. Again, like a sort of smaller, like, you know, version of the main event, really. Another 50-50 welterweight battle on the undercard. Unbeaten fighters, both got a draw each on the record. Marku, the sort of popular Albanian fighter, and Rylan Charlton, who dismantled Joe Laws last time out, Northeast Joe Laws, really sort of took him to the cleaners that night and seized his opportunity on an undercard, matchroom undercard, and now he's back again, straight into another big fight with Florian Marku. Close fight, 50-50. You know, there's a bit of money going on Marku now. He is the favourite, but interesting. Marku drew last time out against Jamie Stewart, a fight that, you know, many people thought he would win and win well, but Stewart was class on the night. So he's got a point to prove coming off the draw, and I think Charlton will be looking to pick up where we left off, and that was when he absolutely battered Joe Laws. So again, a fight that I was talking or replying to someone on Twitter about this today, probably at this point English level at best, which I've said to you in the past that it's maybe not a fight that Matchroom would have taken 2 or 3 years ago, but maybe there's that shift in the Matchroom model now where, you know, if this was on an MTK show or a Steve Goodwin show and you were watching it on YouTube, you'd think, wow, what a class headline fight that is. But it's actually now bang on your Sky TV on your Saturday night. It's probably English level at best. Do you know what I mean? It's a small hall fight, but it's on this Avanesyan Kelly undercard, and it's got people talking. And I think what an opportunity for both lads.
Yeah, and it is maybe shifting away from, like, again, talking about Kelly, but like the Olympians and having these prospects in fights that you sort of anticipate they're going to win comfortably. It's like, will they win? Will they go the distance, or what round will they take out their opponent in? And obviously there are still going to be those fights lower down the card, and we saw a couple last week, like Dalton Smith and that. But it seems like there's, to paraphrase Eddie Hearn when he was saying about fight camp and no easy fights, seems to be a lower threshold for, like, you're not going to get away with padding your record for longer, like especially these two lads who maybe haven't come through that really decorated amateur route. It's almost like, right, yeah, you know, you're with Matchroom, we'll give you a deal, but, and I hate like comparing it to this, but like the UFC model of, like, you're going to fight who we tell you. Like, we've got other fighters that are a similar record to you, similar stage in their career. You want to progress, you've got to take this risk, you've got to fight this guy. And like, I mean, Charlton, prime example, wasn't with Matchroom before the Joe Laws fight. A lot of noise had been made here, mainly by Laws himself, about, like, you know, on the cusp of a Matchroom deal. He'd featured on a few of the shows, generated a bit of excitement, a bit of a buzz around him. And Charlton's performance in that fight alone has got him back on a Matchroom card. Like, if
got a Matchroom deal, got a multi-sign.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So like, yeah, so like on the card, but like, yeah, with a bit of a future, a bit more security about it. And it's not like they haven't signed him and then thought, right, well, we're giving him this multi-fight deal, we'll let him fight 3 no-hopers in a row.
Yeah, exactly.
And boost him that way. They're probably looking, thinking, right, well, we don't know where his ceiling is, so one way to find out, stick him in a good fight. Like, I dare say not many people would be interested in Rylan Charlton against an opponent, against a journeyman, like same with Florian Marku. Like, they need the right dance partners at the stage of the career they're at to generate the interest. And it's like a fantastic fight. Like you say, there's like one fight difference between them in the pro ranks. Marku 7-0-1, Charlton 6-0-1, and they've both shown they've got decent power for the level that they're at. Both very, very confident, very vocal in the belief that they're going to win. And I was a little surprised earlier in the week seeing an Eddie Hearn Twitter poll basically asking the outcome of this. And the majority, I think it was about 44%, had gone with Charlton via knockout. So there was obviously the 4 options, and that was the most popular. And Hearn himself said he got, interesting little eye emoji glancing at it.
Do you think it's because that clip of him knocking out Joe Laws has been played all week?
I think it is. I think I've commented saying
a
lot of boxing fans have very short memories, and I think the old adage that you're only as good as your last fight, is playing in people's minds. They're looking at the last ones, like as you say, Marku got a draw. I thought he won the fight anyway. Like I thought he was unlucky not to get that on the scorecards, and it was probably more competitive than many anticipated, which was maybe why he didn't get all of the rounds that I thought he got. Obviously, Charlton coming off, like as you said, career best win, like national exposure again, like on Sky, and a lot of people are aware of that. So people think, right, Charlton's like got that momentum. He's the one pushing. He's the one who's going to be sort of riding that crest of a wave, and they maybe want to see some improvements from Marku. But I think if I were to pick a winner, I think Florian Marku will stop him. I think he'll catch him with something. And again, like we talked about that sort of not career defining performance, but I think he's going to be motivated to put on a real performance. I think he'll win. I think Marku for this one.
Well, I also agree with you. I think Marku on this one as well. I think point to prove coming off the last fight against Jamie Stewart, where again I agree with you again. I did think he won the fight. I thought Stewart was class on the night as well, mind. But I think he's the one with probably the pressure on him, I guess, coming into it. Needs to get back to winning ways. There was a lot of noise about Marku, like by himself, by his manager, Sam Jones, like they've got a lot riding on him. I think, especially for fans coming back, he's a huge sort of popular fighter with the Albanian crowd and stuff. So I think there's a bit of pressure on Marku on Saturday, but I do think he'll win it as well. I'm not looking past Charlton because I can't, not after what he did to Laws. I overlooked him that night. There was rumours up here in this part of the world that he was basically handpicked by Joe Laws and the team for that fight. Apparently he turned down a lot of opponents and he went with Charlton for that one, and that was the one that got signed off, and it was a bit like, oh, careful what you wish for in hindsight. Like, I remember the lads, some of our mates asking me before the last, will Joe Laws win tonight? And I was like, oh, honestly, if he can't beat this Charlton, someone who his record going into the Laws fight, okay, it was unbeaten, but it was like some points, a few points wins on like sort of local shows in Norwich and stuff. There was a draw on there at Watford Leisure Centre. Do you know what I mean? I was like, God, Laws was the name coming into that fight. He was the one that, he'd been, you may not think he's that good, but he came through Berkeley, he'd been the ABAs. He was the name, like, the Benwell bomber. He had all the reputation. And I did think Charlton that night was picked to be easy work, and he came in and he dismantled him. He looked massive, he looked huge, and it was like just bombs away and just totally destroyed Laws. So I won't take him lightly, I really won't. And
this is the danger, isn't it, of picking or making your predictions and trying to sort of view a fighter based on their record when you haven't actually seen them box. Like we're not the same. We've seen Rylan Charlton before this, and obviously many people had the same with Lara last week against Warrington. Like you can look at the record and you think, like it's impressive, but who have the fought? Like where have the fought? And there was nothing on Charlton's record. There's nothing on Lara's record.
There was nothing on Joe Laws's record.
Upset the apple cart.
There was nothing on Laws's record either when you look back.
No, and again, it's not. But as you say, it's that sort of, this is where the promotional side of things comes in, and maybe our familiarity with Joe Laws has increased. He's standing at that point, and sort of, convinced us that he's maybe was level above Charlton, and that was proven not to be the case.
Just goes to show, though, like I mentioned quite a lot, that there's a lot of shit about boxing, right? But at the end of the day, sometimes you just get these stories where, people come along and take the chance. And Charlton's done it, and like, what a life he can now create for himself. You know what I mean? If he wins this one again on Saturday, it's like, but I've got Laws and Marku on my record in consecutive fights, and suddenly you've made this money, you've opened these doors, and you're like, within 2 fights, you've really changed your life, and it's hell of an opportunity. Well, for both really, but
there's a lot of decent names out there at welterweight around domestic scene for him to get involved with to continue that journey.
how many times we talk about this on this podcast, and thankfully it seems people have listened to us, that, you know, match them together, and we've obviously got that in a few weeks with Chris Congo and Michael Mattinson as well. And so, and again, at that, what I would call English title level, you've got Marku and Charlton now. And it's good for the sport, man. It's class.
And while we're on that, like, we'll talk again about, we'll move on to the MTK card, and full of praise for the sort of matchmaking there. But this card, like, you look at it, and apart from one prospect, Johnny Fisher, making his debut against Matt Gordon with a losing record, all of the others have a very similar record to each other. Like, Bobby Davis Jr.'s 20 wins, 2 losses. He's fighting Gabriel Valenzuela, who's 22 wins, 2 losses and a draw. Now, again, I've got no idea at what level Valenzuela's accumulated that record. Same with Jesus Suarez fighting Jordan Gill. But on paper, they actually have a very similar sort of win-to-loss ratio. And from a matchmaking point of view, if you are going to bring over a foreign opponent to fight for an international title, then I don't really have that much of an issue with that sort of level of matchmaking. Like, it could turn out to be absolutely terrible. It could be like be way out of the depth. But obviously, the Lara fight fresh in everyone's mind.
Well, exactly, aye.
There's this almost element of, there's 2 Mexicans on the card coming over. They've got decent records. They've got some knockouts between them. Like, could this be an upset? Like, Davis and Gill have both been beaten in their career. So you think there's a bit of vulnerability there potentially. Like, you've arguably got 2 really exciting fights there that ordinarily I wouldn't necessarily have classed as that.
I think it is, a lot of it is the Lara factor, like you mentioned last week. Lara coming over and, like, was overlooked by a lot of people, including us, really, that, you know, it was meant to be a walkover for Warrington. And then this week, Matchroom have cleverly marketed around that, like, the Mexicans are in town type of thing, like, will history repeat itself and all that. And, you know, you look into that, the Jordan Gill Cesar Juarez fight was the one that caught my eye, and, like, just only because, like you said, Jordan Gill, he sort of unravelled before, and I think it was sort of accepted now that he was unwell that night, but he came to pieces against the Mexicans, you know what I mean, against Tinoco, and now he's up against one on Saturday who's actually, you dig a bit into his record, and he's lost, 9 times or something, but opposition-wise, you know, last 2019 he was in against Angelo Leo, who's just fought Stevie Fulton there for the world title, and who's gone on to good things, and he went 11 rounds with him, so, you know, it's no mug, do you know what I mean?
It's knockout ratio as well, isn't it? I was looking at his record earlier in the week. Is it like 19 knockouts out of his 25 wins or something?
He went the distance with Donaire back in 2015. He's beaten him with Dogbo. Like, you know, there's some all right names in his record there, and you just...
And he's exactly the sort of person that you look at, and we've been guilty of this in the past. You look at the bet nods, you look at how big a favourite Gill is, and you sort of get a bit underwhelmed by it as a matchup.
Yeah.
You think, well, like, it's foreign opponent, like, they're picking him at a good time. Yes, he's been in with these names, but lower weight classes and all the rest of it. But then, as you said, you look at Lara last week and you think, well, actually, no matter who he's lost to, no matter who he's actually beat, like, he's got decent knockout power. So can he catch Gill with something? You know, that could change the fight. And whether Gill goes out and shows that he's a class above, he's going to have to be wary. He's going to have to be very cautious and very respectful of what could be coming back. And I wonder just how much last weekend will play on the mind of Jordan Gill and Bobby Davis Jr. with his opponent as well.
Absolutely. Like, I like Jordan Gill. I think he's a talented fighter. Like, I'm not sure what his ceiling is. I don't know if he's a world-class fighter in the making, but I think he's decent. You know, he looked good against Bellotti last time out. But as you say, it's just caught a few people's eye, and I think it was Adam Abramovich, is that his name on Twitter? Saturday Night Boxing was like, what fight are people most looking forward to on the Avanesyan Kelly undercard? And a lot of people were putting Gill Juarez, and it just like, it's a fight that probably mostly because of Lara last week, that on first glance would have been underwhelming. It's now starting to just have that little bit of intrigue about it. And like, you know, you do that little digging into Juarez's record and you just start thinking, oh, hello, this, with the caveat of, you know, what ambition will he have? You do get some fighters come over, you know, with not many, but it is for you know, international title. There's a ranking at stake here, so one to keep an eye on. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh yeah, let's try and call the next Lara and tell everyone to lump the money on Juarez to knock Jordan Gill out. But these fights, you know, maybe he's not the walkovers that you initially think they are. Same with
Yeah,
David. Like
Matchroom in the past have received a lot of criticism and a lot of shit from fans for many of their cards, but I have no issue with this one. I think top to bottom, 5 fights on there. I'd be more than happy if Saturday night boxing on Sky was this sort of caliber, and I can't wait. I really can't wait for it.
No, I honestly say I'm looking forward to it. You know, like it's not hard. Like it's what they've got to do. Like, you know, British title fight last week, Lee Wood, Reece Mould, like follow it up again with some more 50-50s, and you know, you've got people talking, you've got people interested. The criticism's not as as bad as it normally would be for Matchroom card, and maybe they've took note of the MTK model. I don't know, and they've seen how well they're doing and the reception they get, and by putting on like 50-50 fights, despite the level, it could be.
I think the whole coronavirus restrictions have probably played their part as well, because it almost levels the playing field in terms of a ticket seller. Like, for example, like Florian Marku there, like he doesn't have that same value to Matchroom, the fact he can shift hundreds of tickets. So they're going to be less inclined to put him on against maybe softer touches and string that out. You know what I mean? If he could sell that amount of tickets to like their London shows, they'd be looking, maybe planning it a bit longer term, thinking, right, well, we'll put him in there with maybe 2 or 3 opponents that we expect him to win against and expect him to win handily, and there's not going to be that much of a risk, and that props up the card financially because he's bringing in the ticket money, whereas obviously that's out the window at the moment. So there's very little value in having Marku as the home fighter against an opponent designed to make him look good. Like, there's more incentive for them to make competitive fights and get people watching on TV.
Absolutely, no, it is. It's a solid card, and a really good card. Actually, solid, probably a touch. I'm really looking forward to it, and obviously it's good to see Robbie Davis Jr. back as well, a fighter that we know well. I haven't spoken to him for a while, but his second fight back after the Ritson Classic, the Ritson War. Again, he's back on it. Training over in Sheffield now, I think, with Domingo's gym. So looking forward to seeing him back as well. And please,
yeah, again, like, I mean, that Ritson fight there, like on another night, in another venue, potentially he could have got the nod. And like him and Lewis, to be honest, both still at a similar level. Like, they've had a very close fight for essentially a European title, like a European title level fight. Yeah. They've both gone on and they're both fighting for sort of international, like, world eliminator type fights. And again, like, obviously Robbie surely can come back from a loss before, and I've no doubt he'll be looking to do that again. Like, he's made plenty of noise in the past. Like, he's won British, Commonwealth, European titles at the weight, and there's nothing else for him to achieve other than getting to a world title. Absolutely, whether he does or not, whether he ultimately proves he's at that level, then it's very much open to debate, and open, like, time will tell with that one. But he's one of a host of fighters that, given the right route and with the right opportunity, maybe a big slice of luck along the way, he could pick up a version of the world title. And we've talked about before, at 140, you've got Josh Taylor and Ramirez looking to unify. Once that happens, if it does, the belts could potentially become scattered. And I think Davis, this one for an IBF eliminator or an IBF international title or something, it's going to, propel him up the ranks, and maybe the Ritson rematch could be for the IBF world title. And stranger things have happened in boxing.
No, he's certainly right. I think it'll always be there, that fight one, and I think it's a fight Davis seems pretty not desperate for, but really keen on. I'm not sure it'll happen anytime soon. Like you say, they both will go on different routes at the minute. It was a one, I think, straight after the fight, I wasn't that arsed. I thought there was a pretty, it was good, really good, and what an atmosphere. We were both there. It was a brilliant night, but I didn't think it warranted an immediate rematch, and that's proved to be the case. But I think it'll always be there in the back of probably both fighters' minds and promoters' minds and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, people wouldn't say no to it again. So it's one to watch. Want to keep an eye on, probably in the next couple of years, maybe. So definitely. But I think that wraps up Saturday's card, and I think we're both on the same page when it comes to who we think will win. For the two main 50-50 fights, we're going to go for Kelly and for Marku. So let's see how they go. But really looking forward to it. But that's not Or the UK boxing this weekend. There's actually a show on Friday night. MTK Global are back doing what they do, and that is domestic 50-50 fights, really. Again, they've had bad luck with COVID and rescheduling and different things, so their shows have been sort of pushed around and amalgamated at different dates and different shows. But they're back Friday night, live on IFL TV in this country and ESPN Plus in the States. Commonwealth title fight, Commonwealth lightweight title fight, tops the bill. We've got an English title fight on there and a super feather Southern area title fight. Cracking. That's just what they do. That's their niche. That's just what they do. And I think it's looking forward to that on Friday night.
We've talked in the past at length probably about like the small hall shows generally have an area title fight as a headline. Like we've seen Northern area title fights up here, and if you're lucky, you'll get an English. Like very occasionally, there's been I've seen British title fights and Commonwealth title fights headline shows up here.
Yeah.
For MTK, like as I said, they just sort of elevate themselves a bit above that in the fact that they've got the 3 title fights on. The rest of the card, again, barring one fight, which is listed at the bottom on BoxRec, Mohammed Samir 1-0 against Kieran Thomas with 1 win and 9 losses and a draw on his record. Every other fight, and I'm not going to run through all of their individual records, is so similarly matched. It's unbelievable. Like,
yeah,
it's the definition, at least on paper, of a competitive card, again, from top to bottom. And as a fan, the chance to watch this for free, you can't ask for more. Like,
I can't.
Yes, you can argue, you know, you will be certain fans only tune in for world title fights and all the rest of it. But in terms of your bread and butter boxing, this is what you should be lapping up as a fan.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's as good as it gets for free and for, you know, streaming channel and stuff like that. Commonwealth title fight, I really like that fight. Sean McComb, talented fighter. Sean McComb going up against Gavin Gwynn, who he's trying for the 3rd time lucky to try and get a title under his, well, on his waist, really. You know, he's Cordina beat him for the Commonwealth and the British. Then he lost to Tennyson again for the British lightweight title. So that's 2 sort of title fights. He's lost, but he's never disgraced himself in any, really. Tennyson stopped him, but Tennyson stops a lot of people, and he went the distance with Cordina and showed a great engine and a great desire. And I think if McComb sort of drops down his level and, you know, tries to take rounds off and stuff, I think Gwyn will last all day unless he gets stopped. But Gwyn, like that, he's got a fantastic engine and he just keeps coming and coming. So again, I'm looking forward to that one. I've got a sneaky little feeling for Gavin Gwyn in that. I think, like I say, if McComb, he's only had 11 fights, and I think if he just, you know, has a bit of an off night, I think Gwyn will be the one that could capitalise on that, because he's just bang on it all the time. Looking forward to that fight. Really good, decent Commonwealth lightweight title on a Friday night.
It's a really good one, really intriguing contest, because if you're Sean McComb, you're looking at Gwyn's losses and you're thinking, right, well, he's lost to Tennyson, he's lost to Cordina. I want to show that I'm on their level, that I'm like looking potentially, you know, get the Commonwealth belt, move on through the levels at the sort of stage of his career he'll be at. But then from the point of view of Gavin Gwyn, he's looking thinking, well, I've lost to these guys, yes, but I've also fought better guys than what McComb's proven to be now. So he'll maybe go in with a bit of belief from the losses. And I know that seems like an alien concept to a lot of people, but we often hear that, like, you learn more from the fights you lose and from those sort of situations. So it'll be really interesting to see what he has learned from those performances, Gwyn, and whether he can go out and make it really uncomfortable for McComb, or is McComb at that level of, you know, what we talk about, we sort of brand as like the elite prospect? Is he a really high level prospect that he'll go out there and put a performance on and make a bit of a statement by beating Gwyn as handily as those other 2?
He's definitely a fighter at MTK rate high. He is the home fighter in it as well. Like, he's one of their sort of the Irish sort of stable of fighters. He's definitely a fighter at their rate. I haven't again seen loads of McComb. I have watched his last couple of fights, but like you say, I think those losses for Gwyn, and especially the Cordina loss going 12, would really like give him a lot of confidence to mix with McComb. You know what I mean? Like, levels wise. I think he'd be bang up for it, and I think I think is intriguing. The odds don't really suggest that. I think McCombs is 6-1 on favourite. I think you can get basically 6-1 against on Gavin Gwynn, which I think is a pretty decent value little bet, to be honest with you. I think I might have £2.50 on that, me. Yeah,
you must be confident.
Yeah, got all out. But no, I just have a sneaky feel about it. That's all. But I'm looking forward to it. And then you go down the card, you've got an English welterweight title fight, which we've just literally been banging on about. The depth again in this welterweight division in this country, and there's a fine example for an English title on the line here. So that's 3 basically 50-50 welterweight fights on the line this weekend. Names that might not be massively familiar with a lot of people, but Darren Tetley against Sami Antwi. Tetley, I always remember from the Josh Warrington undercard, Josh Warrington Lee Selby undercard for a cracking fight at Ellen Road against Mason Cartwright. Really good fight, like proper blood and guts type of fight. Tetley got the win later on, and it was a good fight. Really good. He's always sort of stuck in my mind since that. Lost his last one against Liam Taylor on an MTK show, I think. But
that was a really good fight as well. I remember from that one as much as the Warrington undercard fight. And again, like it was such a good fight. Like you've got to, again, it's what happens when you put two lads in with a similar record and at a similar level, and they both have that belief. And like we talked earlier about Juarez and what mentality will he come over with? Will he come to win? Will he be there to sort of coast and that? And very rarely in these sorts of fights do you ever get that. You can't question the mentality because both fighters are coming to win. Ultimately, one may prove to be superior and, you know, outclass his opponent or knock his opponent out, however it may end. But they're both going in to win. They're both going in to have a go, and that almost takes care of everything else.
Yeah,
it sounds really simple and really basic in terms of matchmaking, but you just get so much more from a fight when the two of them are confident of getting a win, whatever level it's at.
I can't really call this one. I haven't really seen enough to. I've seen more of Tetley, I think, than I have Antwi, so I can't. Really
yeah, same. I think I'm gonna side with Tetley in this one. He's my cup of tea.
Bit annoyed that you got that one in. I didn't.
I've been waiting for it since you started talking about him.
And then you've got a Southern Area featherweight title on there as well. Danny Carr against Dean Dodge. Again, I'm sure there's a lot of other Southern boxing accounts on Twitter and stuff that can navigate you in the right direction on that one. It's just a fight I'm going to sit back and watch and just take in. I think it's basically, from what I've been reading, a bit of a last roll of the dice for Danny Carr. I think I've got interests away from boxing and stuff. So, but again, Southern Area, I love the man area title fights. You know, the equivalent Northern Area title fights that we go to up here rarely fail to disappoint. So hopefully this one catches fire as well. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, and again, like I think we're probably going to have a similar outlook on a lot of the other fights down the card, like Elliot Whale 3-0 against Jamie Stewart, who we talked about coming off the Marku draw, 2 wins and a draw on his undefeated record. Mark McKeown 3-0 against Brad Dawes 6-0. These are fighters that I'm not going to pretend to know an awful lot about, but just based on their records, like the matchmaking is perfect there. It makes sense that they're fights that on their own, I wouldn't necessarily be bothered about seeing one of those fighters fighting a journeyman opponent. You're not going to learn a lot from that as a fan. They're not going to learn that much from it as a boxer, but there's a bit of intrigue there because you think, well, actually, they're over 6 rounds.
Yeah.
They're competitively matched on paper. So I've got, obviously, no one's really got anything to do with the minute during lockdown, but I've got not a lot on tomorrow night. So
I'll be watching. To finish. I'll be watching it. No, and I think we were talking off camera, off air, whatever before, and I think it was the Paddy Donovan fight that jumped out for you, wasn't it? You had a bit of an eye raise when you see the opponent. You thought, oh wow, that's quite a step for Paddy, isn't it?
Yeah, I left that one out deliberately because that's the one that, as you said, stands out, and it's a little bit different. In that, not that it's not competitive, because I think it will be, but I think it's a big step up for Donovan. He's a red hot prospect, isn't he? He's a lot of hype around him, and from what I've seen of it, it's entirely justified, to be honest. He looks an absolute class act, and he's got the backing of obviously MTK promotionally, like advisory, management, whatever role they have. He's working with Andy Lee, who one of my favourite boxers of all time, to be honest, just in terms of his mannerism, the way he breaks a fight down as a pundit, but also the excitement he had during his career, like some absolute highlight reel knockouts, some brilliant performances, and he seems to be fairly level-headed. So I think from that point of view, like Donovan could not be in better hands.
Yeah.
All that said, though, C.R. Ozgul is, and I don't want to say this in the sense of, oh, he's a game opponent, he'll provide a tough test, but ultimately he won't win. But he is no mug, and he is a massive step up for any fighter who's had only 5 pro outings. Like, again, said to you before we were recording, just when that got announced, I sort of had to do a little double take. And I know Ozgul's fought on MTK cards in the past. He's fought as an away fighter in a few of his fights. Some fans, some observers will look and think, oh, he's got, 5 losses out of 20 fights. He's 15 wins, 5 losses. He actually lost to Sam Antwi, who we were talking about earlier. So that was one of the fights that I did remember seeing Antwi fight for, and it was going to be for the southern area, but Antwi was over the limit, so he maybe had a bit of a weight advantage there. But up until probably, I'm trying to think when it was now and which year it was, but on the it was the Josh Taylor, Ryan Martin undercard that I travelled up for, and Ozgul there had like, I think 1 loss up to that point, and he went in with Victor Postol, who's like a former world champion, gave Taylor all sorts of problems, and thought, okay, that's maybe his big opportunity, and he came up short there. There's no shame whatsoever in losing to Postol, but since then he's just seems to have like been in competitive fight after competitive fight, and like apart from the Antwi lost to Anthony Yigit, again like solid sort of European level contender. And I think his last fight he actually lost to Sean McComb, who we were talking about earlier. But like he's the very definition of a fighter he's lost fights, but he's only lost fights against very good fighters. So in a similar sort of thing to what we're talking about with Wynn and McComb, you've got a prospect here who's very inexperienced as a professional, going in against someone who's very capable and very experienced and has operated at a higher level. He's coming in with a winning record. Is he going down the route of maybe being that sort of gatekeeper, that higher level journeyman?
Maybe so.
Happy to fight in the away corner for a bigger purse, picking up losses here and there, but it'll be one to watch. I think he's got the potential to pose Donovan some problems and basically give Donovan the opportunity to provide some answers. Like if he goes out and stops Ozgul, it'll be a massive statement. Like then you've got to believe all the hype that comes his way and all the praise that'll be lavished upon him.
I know, definitely it's a fight I'm looking forward to. And again, like you said, that hype around Donovan is, I would say it's probably up there, sort of Dennis McCann levels of hype. Do you know what I mean? As there's like there was people in boxing who swear by these type of fighters and who just think they're a star in the making and a world champion in the making, and you don't hear too many people say a bad word about them or their abilities or anything like that. Like potentially special talents. So again, outstanding amateurs and stuff. So looking forward to watching that. Looking forward to the whole card. I think, like you say, like if people aren't familiar with it and just haven't yet delved into like an MTK show on IFL and stuff, and just you might not know the names, you might not know who you're watching, but you'll soon learn and you'll soon get a grip of them and stuff. So it's a decent little starter ahead of Avanesyan and Kelly on Saturday night. I'm looking forward to it. I always enjoy these shows.
What a weekend we've got ahead, man. What a weekend, honestly. Like, boxing is back.
It's meant, no, I can't wait. Class, you missed it. I really missed it. And like last Saturday, I enjoyed it. Yeah, there's a lot we could have talked about, which we probably should have on Sunday, but whatever. Like, that's gone now. And again, like I keep saying every week, the wheels keep moving in boxing, and you're into another fight week again. I think this one's a cracker. So no cynicism here, no negativity, just bang up for it. Really looking forward to it.
Sit back and enjoy it.
Aye. Any other business section of the podcast? Round for Pounders back.
was going to say, I don't really have any, but yeah, round for pound, it has returned at long last. We were hoping to get it up and running in time for this weekend. We technically have, but we thought the turnaround of 2 or 3 days probably wasn't enough for us to like maximise it and get as many people playing as possible. So the fights for this first round of 12 start next weekend, 27th Feb. Was going to be the Frampton Heron card. Obviously, that's been postponed. The rest of the card goes ahead. So we've got Anto Kakache on there against Leon Woodstock. Canelo fighting Avni Yildirim next weekend as well. We've got Martinez against Arroyo from the undercard there. Like, that hell of a fight to predict that one, by the way. He can knock them out in any round, Martinez. And then what we've done is stretched it out over the 2 weeks. So basically, anyone listening, you've got until Saturday the 27th to get your predictions in. Get signed up, get your predictions in, and then the fights go over 2 weekends. So that day, the Saturday the 27th, and then the following weekend, the Dillian White Povetkin rematch. There's a few fights from that card, and it's back. It's bigger than ever in terms of the popularity. We've had people pestering us for weeks about when it's coming back, and might make a few fine-tuning tweaks and adjustments, but we've got it back. We've got it back up and running. For those that aren't aware of this format of it, we've split it over 12 rounds. So basically, our league table will be calculated over those 12 rounds. So we've got lots of familiar faces. I'm sure we'll be returning to it for those that have been involved. Completely free to play and sign up. We'll be pinging out some emails reminding people about when to get the predictions in. Check our socials, Facebook, Twitter. Obviously, if you're listening to the podcast, any reminders we'll drop in on here as well. And for those that maybe aren't as bothered about the league table and playing every week and like coming back week after week, then there are still prizes up for grabs. If anyone predicts all of the results spot on perfectly, then there's £500 in-store credit to spend at our sponsors, Spennymoor Sports. Big shout out to Kieran.
Big up, Kieran.
And we've actually got ourselves really organised, and we have a guaranteed prize giveaway for each of those 12 rounds. So the highest scorer of each individual round will be getting some pretty awesome boxing memorabilia and merchandise sent out to them.
Absolutely. We've done well. We're doing well. We're always adding to it, always thinking of different ideas and stuff. So if anyone wants to help out, chip in, has any ideas, anywhere to point us in different directions, then we're always on the lookout for boxing memorabilia. But no, it's quite humbling to actually have people that are bothered about it and enjoy it and tweet us and, "How man, when you bring it back?" And I was like, it was all in good. We had it in hand. Well, Andrew had it in hand. It was all in good time and
slipping through my hands at times.
We're back. So no, it's good, and hopefully, as I keep saying, we'll try and get bigger and better and increase the prizes and in time. But no, it's great to be back, and it's good. It's interactive, bit of banter, like gets people talking on Twitter. So excited to have that back next weekend.
Hashtag stay humble.
Tuesday coming up, I've got stay humble. Tuesday coming up, I've got a bit of a chat going on with everyone's favourite Mank, Macaulay McGowan. He's coming on the podcast. Sort of round 2, as I'd like to call it, of like branching out with guests and video interviews and stuff. We fired some in before Christmas. We're just getting back on our feet again, so they'll start again. He's coming on Tuesday, so looking forward to having a chat with him as well. So exciting week ahead. Starts tomorrow night.
Bring it on. Cheers, Stephen.
Thanks for listening again, everyone. Everyone that does listen, if anyone wants to leave us a review or tell your pals or give us a 5-star click or subscribe or whatever, then we'd really appreciate that as well. So thank you. Cheers, Andrew. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.